What's up, guys? So last time I took a video, I said I was gonna be doing a first startup on this thing, and I did already start it, I ain't gonna lie, but I'm gonna do it again for you guys. And I was gonna go over some of the things I ran into and why this kind of took longer than usual. Usually I upload about once a week, but this past week I didn't make any uploads. I was dealing with this thing and trying to get it all sorted out, so I didn't really have time to mess with that, making a video about it. So in this video I'm going to cover some of the things I did, but stick around. At the end of this video we will be starting this thing. So real quick, I wanted to mention that if you're doing this, make sure that the TPS auto set, the throttle position sensor set up in the HOLLEY EFI, is done and it's working, because that's one of the problems I had. This thing was not getting any spark and I didn't know why. Well, upon further investigation, the TPS auto set thing was not set up. I tried it and it said it failed. So I was like, what the heck, you know? So then I ohmed out this wire right here, as you can see, and I was getting power at this connector. I think it's a 5 volt and a reference and a ground, and they were all good. But when I ohmed out my resistor here, or the sensor itself, or not the sensor, yeah, I guess that'd be a sensor. When I ohmed that out, it was showing nothing. Like there was OL, you know. So I was like, well, that's not it. That's not okay. So what I did is I went and we got a couple throttle bodies laying around for the multiple Magnums we have, but I went to another one, ohmed it out, and it was reading. It was like 1 to 5 or something like that. So I knew something was wrong with this one, the one that was on it. So what I ended up doing is I took it off. As you can see, it's right here sitting on my hood, but that's the one that was on it. It's actually a lot cleaner than the one that is on it now. I ran out of brake clean, but I was cleaning out. I just cleaned out the inside of it real good and everything, and made sure it was all right. But the outside of it is still kind of dirty. But I'm not too worried about it, because we're probably going to put a bigger throttle body on it anyway. This is just for right now to get everything up and running. We'll be addressing that later on. But I will say that we put the new one on it, and the TPS auto set went and worked fine, and that fixed our no spark issue. So we had a problem with no spark, and I went through my wiring harness and I was like, I know everything's right. I triple checked everything, double checked everything, and I didn't know what the heck was wrong with it. Well, come to find out, without the TPS auto set being correct and calibrated and everything, it will not send spark to the truck. So if you run into that issue, make sure that's set up. It may help somebody eventually. Somebody might have the same problem at some point, but yeah, so just make sure that's right. And then I also rechecked my HOLLEY EFI, because I had this thing shut off for a while through my switch back there, and I think I mentioned in the previous video where I had a wire going to my power distribution box, and whenever I turn that switch off, it would kill the power to that box. So I was turning my HOLLEY EFI box off, and I didn't know if it lost the data. I'm not exactly sure how that works, like if it stores the data or something in there of where it's at. But I went ahead and rechecked it, and everything was the same as it was, so I don't think it really made a difference. But anyway, I went ahead and just did it again just to make sure. I'm talking about the distributor syncing it up with the HOLLEY system. And it's all good now. And also we had some fuel leaks. I don't know if I mentioned that in any other videos, but we did have some fuel leaks around the fuel filters back there with my HOLLEY system. I put some fuel in it, had some fuel leaks, had to take all the fuel back out. And if you ever need to run the fuel out of your tank, since I already had the pump and everything hooked up, you can go in there, and where it says prime, it'll say like, I don't remember exactly how it's worded, but it's like fuel prime. It's basically when you turn the key, it's gonna prime the system of fuel. You can just set that, because normally it's set like 5 seconds, but I set it to, I think it was like 260 seconds or something like that, where it's set there and run for a few minutes, and it got all the fuel out of the system. So if you ever need to do that, you can just go in there and do that. Just turn the key on, it'll pump all the fuel out. Just make sure you set it back to the 5 second thing, because you probably don't want your pump to be running that long. But anyway, that was the only leak we had. It was just right there on the fuel filters. I went ahead and put some some sealer on it. It's like it's kind of like a PTFE paste. I'll show you real quick what it is, but it worked pretty good. There's one that's still seeping a little bit. I may not have put enough on it, but what I use is this TFE paste, and it says it's good for high temperatures, can hold like 3,000 psi, and it says it works on fuels. So I'm hoping this will work all right with the 85. I know it works with gasoline, so we'll give it a shot. And it is leaking right now, one of my fittings, but I use it on like 3 different fittings, so that's the only one that's leaking on. I think I may not maybe just didn't put enough on it or something, but yeah, that's what we've been doing. That's why I haven't made any updates or anything, and I've been kind of busy with things going on, you know, Thanksgiving and all that. I had to go to a couple family things, but we're all good now. I got this thing running. I got the dash put back in. I'll show you that real quick. I have not set up my tachometer on here to work yet, but so it doesn't work right now. I mean, everything, it's got power and everything, but it's not getting a signal from the ECM at the moment. There's a wire that I'm going to tap into. I just haven't had time to do that today, but I'm going to probably after this video. But we'll go ahead and start this thing for you guys. And I did already check all my oil pressure and everything, and it's all good. But yeah, so go ahead and set it. Hear my fuel pump kicking on, and as you can see, she is running. Now I do not have the belt or anything hooked up, but it's running pretty decent. As you can see, it's running pretty good. I don't have a lifter tick anymore, which is awesome. But I no longer have a lifter tick, which is awesome. I did replace that one lifter. I do have something kind of weird that's going on, and maybe it's just the heat in the motor. I'm not real sure, but I'm not sure if you can hear it on the video or not, but I hear some kind of like pecking. Maybe it's the lifter's bleeding down or something, but I'm thinking it's heat in the motor making this noise. I'm not real sure what that is, but every time I shut it off, it does that. But yeah, we got 60 psi of oil pressure, and fuel pressure is good. It's at 40, and it's running good. Everything seems to be sealed good. We do have a small leak down here at the bottom. I'll see if I can get a, well, there was a puddle there, and I'm not sure if, you see where I got some of that oil dry down there, but I'm not sure if that was where we was putting the motor in, and whenever we put the motor in, it was tilted back and some oil came out of the back of that seal back there. It might have been the oil pan seal. I'm not sure if it was that or the rear main. Hopefully it wasn't the rear main, but it came out and we set the motor back down, and it quit doing that. But now that I've been running it, maybe it collected in the bell housing and then it kind of ran out as it was running because it kind of shaking everything. But that's what I'm hoping. But I don't see any drips right now. Like, I'm actively looking at it and I don't see anything dripping. But it may only do it when it's actually running. So we'll have to keep that in mind whenever we're doing everything. But next on the list, we're gonna be putting a radiator in this thing, and then we can actually take it up and down the road. So we're getting close, guys. We really are. Tomorrow I'm gonna come over here and try to work on getting the radiator fixed up. We got, like I said, we got a bunch of stuff hooked back up. There's still some brackets and stuff like back here. I'm gonna leave the bumper off of it, but like this bracket holds the dash in place on the passenger side. I gotta hook that up in my transmission cooler. We gotta figure out something with the air cleaner because this will not work. As you can see, it's got the hole in the center, like where you would run some all thread down through there. And if you look up here on the throttle body, it's not centered, so I can't use that. It is the right diameter, so it would go around it, but I have no way of securing it because it's kind of like a three-piece. It's got the lid on top and the filter and then the bottom piece. But we'll have to figure something out. I'll probably just run the stock Magnum air filter assembly. I'll take it down the road and test drive it and everything. But yeah, I mean, the exhaust gaskets seem to be sealing. I was a little bit concerned about that because I reused the old ones, but I think we'll be all right with that. And it seems to be running good. I don't hear any unusual noises. It's running good. I had to set up a base file for my tune, you know, like, because right now I got it on 0 learn. It's not learning at all. I want to kind of get it set up to run good without having to learn or anything, and then using the learn feature to kind of help it as I continue to tune it, you know. Right now, I just got it enough to where I could rev it up and check the timing and everything and make sure it's staying where it's supposed to be at. By the way, this thing is at 12 degrees at idle, and I can actually show you my timing curve. It's kind of, oh, it's a table. All right, guys, so hopefully you can see this, but this is my timing curve for right now. I'm gonna make some reiterations of this, but as you can see, kind of zoom in a little bit so you can kind of see what you're looking at. This right here is like 29 psi, and then this is 0, so that'd just be if it was just not running at all. And then down here is this vacuum. So right now we don't have any boost or anything, so we're solely on vacuum. So we're kind of operating in this range. Like you can see where I've changed it, where it's kind of green and blue and purple. I just put different colors in there, but essentially I just made them all the same for right now. Like this whole row is the same, this whole row is the same. It's like it's all the way the same below 0 psi, which, you know, I'm under vacuum, so I'm not gonna go over that. But oh, I guess my battery's running low. But see, like here's just 12, 13, 14, 16, 17, 18, 18, 19, 21, 23, 24, 25, and so on until I get to 28 degrees here at the end. And this is just kind of a basic kind of tune, like a tune, just so I can get it up and running. I'm gonna go through and re-evaluate all this as I actually am able to drive it and get better results, because right now I don't have the radiator in it, so I can't run it very long and I can't actually test it very good. And I don't know if you noticed, but whenever I started earlier, it kind of made like a woof woof sound, like a where the air was kind of rushing in, and it was almost dying. And that's because I have not messed with the acceleration enrichment at all. And essentially, if you watch my carburetor video, it's kind of like the pump shot, and the EFI system kind of does that on its own. It kind of adds more fuel to the fuel injector when it sees a certain difference in throttle position, and based off of that, it kind of adds its own amount, you know. So once I get all that dialed in, it will no longer have that issue. I just got it good enough to where I could rev it up to 3,000, 4,000, and make sure the timing is staying where it's supposed to be at based on this graph, because it can have some variances, and I just wanted to make sure that I think it's called inductive delay or something like that. I think it's what they call it in here. And essentially it's like just it can be off whenever you rev it up for whatever reason. I think it might have something to do with voltage or something, but it can be off, and I was just making sure that it was accurate. So this is just a very base tune. Like, I'm just getting this thing running. I just want to make that clear so nobody comes at me for this tune, because it's not that great. But anyway, so this is kind of how that's set up. You can kind of go through here and just type in whatever number you want to make it whatever timing you want. Now over here, if you go to the top up here where this little injector thing's at, you can see this is my volumetric efficiency table. Now real quick, I'll kind of explain what volumetric efficiency is in a simple term. So essentially, if you got a 360 cubic inch motor, which I do, then at 100% VE volumetric efficiency, it would be flowing 360 cubic inches of air in and out of the cylinders. So that's 100%. Like, it's everything that motor can handle. It can hold. That's what it's hitting. Like, it's getting 100% of it. Now in the real world, you're not going to get a full 100% because you got some restrictions. I mean, you got valves opening and closing. You got, unless you got some super crazy stuff going on with like velocity stacks and all kinds of stuff, and you know, there'd be a lot of stuff going on to where you could possibly get 100 and maybe a little bit more. It's kind of weird, but there are engines out there that can do it, but they're like way high end of the spectrum. For most engines, you're going to be running in like the 90 to 95 range, or maybe a little bit more, 96, 97, depending on the engine, how good the heads are, etc. You know, like if it's a full-blown race engine, it might get more to the higher 90s. But for like what I'm doing, I'm thinking mine's probably, the volumetric efficiency is probably like, I don't know, 94, 95, something like that. So that's where I got it set at. I'll show you real quick on my graph kind of what I'm talking about. At idle, they're about 40% VE, so it's about half the volume of the motor can actually handle, is what it has. You can see down here, it basically is kind of a way that the system can decide how much fuel to give it. So at 40%, it kind of, in the background, this computer is calculating how much fuel the engine needs to run. Like, it knows the cubic inches of the motor. I set that up in there where it knows how big the motor is. And I'm just telling it how efficient it's being. At the maximum efficiency would be 100%. I'm just explaining or telling the computer via these numbers what percentage I think that the motor is running at, so that way I can kind of judge. And based on how my AFRs look and stuff like that, I can kind of figure out how accurate I am and kind of change it. And you know, if everything's running good, then it's pretty close. But yeah, essentially I'll show you real quick what my graph looks like. So at idle it's at 40, because like I said, you know, 40% at idle, and then it goes up to 43, 50, 55 at like 2,000, and then 2,500 to or about 2,500 is at 65, and then about 3,500 it goes to 74, 4,000 is 84, and then about 5 is 90, 5,000, and then I got it at 95 at 5,600, which is about what I'm expecting my peak power to be at. Might be a little less than that. I'll have to, like I said, as I drive it, I'll know. It'll give me a better idea of where I'm making peak power at. Based on my dyno graph, I think I was making peak power at like 51 or 5,200, something like that. So I may have to move that down and kind of reevaluate where it's making the power at. So that's kind of how that works. That's kind of how I'm setting my fuel system up for right now, just in case anybody else is kind of wanting to do the same thing. That's kind of a general baseline you can use to get something started, and then go from there. As I drive it and as I rev it and everything, once I get a radiator and I can actually let it run for a while, I'll let it get warmed up and make sure that it's going to be accurate. Because right now the engine's cold, so I don't know if it's completely accurate. I just did that, as I said before, so I could get it to rev up and actually check my timing and everything. Looks like my battery just kicked off back there, my charger. I've been charging this thing because I don't have an alternator on it, and I've been cranking it and running it and everything, so that's why it's on there. If you heard that beep in the background, that's what that was. But I'll show you real quick the acceleration enrichment. So it gives you some options here. As you can see, I'm about to click on that, acceleration enrichment. And it's kind of a graph, you know, based on, this is in pounds an hour, which I don't really like, because that's another way of measuring how much fuel it takes. And as you can see, it says throttle position, sensor, rate of change. So as the rate of change increases, you can increase how much fuel is delivered. But I'm not a fan of the pounds an hour because I'm not really familiar with that. But the VE seems a lot more simpler to me. I'm sure if I really studied the pounds an hour, I could figure it out, because I know how many pounds an hour the engine has based on what my injectors are and all that, you know. So you could calculate it all out, but to me it's just a lot simpler to use VE. So I'm gonna see if there's a way I can use that with VE, and if not, then I can play with it and figure it out. And I'll kind of show you guys that as I'm doing it, if it comes down to that. But hopefully I can change it to VE, so it'll be easier for me to understand what I'm doing. But if that's not possible, then we'll go from there, you know. But I just kind of want to keep you guys updated on what I'm doing, because I know there's not a lot of information out there on how to tune stuff like this. So there's a few people you can watch, and they'll teach you how to do it and everything. But I'm learning this stuff, and I kind of want to teach it as I was going. Not really teach it, but kind of show you my experience as I'm doing this, so that way if anybody else is doing something like this, then they'll kind of have an idea of where to go. And if I mess something up during it, then you know not to do what I just did, you know. So I figured I might as well film this while I'm doing it, because I'm going to do it anyway. And I'm wanting to learn all this stuff, and I do have a little bit of knowledge in it, because like I said, I've been taking some classes. I'm not no expert. Do not think that I am. I'm not. But I'm just going to be real with you guys and show you what I'm doing, and you can see as I'm doing this if it's working or not, whatever your opinion is of it. And you can let me know in the comments as well. Like, I'm open to any suggestions. If anybody has any suggestions on anything as far as the tune or whatever, let me know, because I'm trying to make this thing the best it can be. So I'm completely open to that. But yeah, so that's where we're at right now. There's a few things I want to mention as well, but probably not in this video. I'll probably make another video on that. I'll probably make another video tomorrow, honestly, and then we'll talk about some other stuff that's going to be going on with the channel, and hopefully we'll have this thing up and going before too long. I don't want to say it's going to be 1 week. It's probably going to be 2 or 3 weeks before we actually get it work and drive, but I'll make some more videos whenever we're doing that, and in the meantime, I'll put some updates out there if I do the radiator and all that. You know, whenever I get that in there, I'll do some updates every week like I've been doing. And I'll probably make another video this week some point about some of the things that we're going to be doing on the channel. There's some pretty exciting stuff going on, and I'll let y'all know about that in the next video. So stick around and watch that video, because it'll be pretty interesting. Kind of give you an idea of where this channel's going. But anyways, thanks for watching, guys. Please like and subscribe, and check out any of my other videos. And like I said before, if you have any suggestions or questions or anything of that nature, please leave them in the comments, and I'll try to address them as soon as possible. Thanks, guys.